Some important pieces from the 2025 Houston Texans team are set to become free agents. Some unimportant pieces are set to become free agents, and maybe those pieces need to come back. Maybe they don't. We'll figure it all out together as we'll go through every single pending free agent the Texans have, figure out if they deserve to be in the Price is Right crew, which is a very important crew that you want to be in, and we'll go through what those contracts might look like if they do end up coming back. Welcome to the channel. I'm Cody Stoots. Let's talk some Texans. The caffeine du jour, the new Rise Frosted Lemonade. I'm not a big lemonade guy, but frosted lemonade kind of got me intrigued. Let's see. That tastes like candy. Oh, that's pretty good. It's got just enough lemonade and just enough frosted that you're not on either way. So let's talk about free agents here for the Houston Texans. A lot of the important pieces of this team are not set to be free agents. You think about the defense that the Houston Texans have, that vaunted defense, and the super important pieces aren't going anywhere. Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter under contract for 2026, Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter, Kalen Bullock, Azeez Al-Shire, Henry To'o. There's plenty of pieces of the defense, the best part of the Texans, that are under contract. A lot of pieces on offense are figured out too. A couple of offensive line spots are figured out with Titus Howard and Hiriante Ursary, Jake Andrews, if you want to go that far. A lot of wide receiver options on this team. Nick Caserio himself, after the season, said he really liked the wide receiver room, so can't imagine that they're doing too much there. Woody Marks is on the team. Probably need to pay attention to the running back position, but there's a lot of stuff already in place. But there are some pieces that the Texans leaned on in 2025 that are set to be free agents. There's some pieces that were, frankly, just 2025 pieces and should probably stay as such. 19 set to be free agents. We'll go through all of them in this show. We'll go through all of them, and we'll decide who we talk about in order based off of the wheel of free agent destiny. So let's get to it. Where do we start? Some of these conversations will be much longer than other ones, and some of them will be much shorter. Let's start with Tommy Townsend, the punter for the Houston Texans. Townsend made a few $1 million this past year. He was a pretty decent punter. He had some hiccups. He had some tough moments over the course of the season, but he also had some really nice moments. He signed a 2-year, $6 million contract at the beginning of 2024 and played 2024 and 2025 for the Houston Texans and was excellent in Kansas City before ending up with the Texans, and ultimately ended up being a pretty good punter in the 2024 and 2025 season. Townsend finished about average on average punt. He finished about average on net. As far as punts inside the 20, he ended up with a lot of good ones because the Texans, ended up stalling about midfield a bunch of times. It made it easier for him, and they have a really good coverage unit. He did not have a ton of touchbacks outside the top 10 in touchbacks. So this is a player where you're like, okay, if I don't want to go with an unproven option, if I don't want to go with somebody who I'm, a little bit risky, you bump a couple of $100,000 onto Tommy's contract and bring him back. So Tommy Townsend, right off the bat, I would say you put him in the Price is Right crew. We're going to have a crew here. We'll put him in the Price is Right crew. No big increase in salary for Tommy Townsend, but we're going to put Tommy Townsend in the Price is Right crew. Bring him back if the price is right. Give him a name tag, so to speak. Okay. Who's next on the wheel of free agent destiny? Again, some of these combos will be pretty short, like this one. Linebacker Christian Harris. I mean, what are you going to do with Christian Harris? You can't bring him back. You can't rely on him. He had a really good finish to his season a couple of years ago. And then the injury took him out for almost all of 2024. And then he was on the team in 2025 and just wasn't very good. So Christian Harris, I would think this one's a pretty easy conversation. It's probably time for him to try something new. It's probably time for the Texans to try something new. A lot of hope for Christian Harris, certainly coming out of 2023 into 2024. The injury derails him. He never gets back on track. Christian Harris, a pretty easy decision to make. The wheel will keep on spinning who is next. Running back Nick Chubb is our next one. This one seems pretty easy to me. Nick Chubb, you go ahead, you move on from him. He was only added when they figured out Joe Mixon wasn't going to be able to play. There were some nice moments from Nick Chubb, but nothing that you feel like you have to bring him back. There's 10 Nick Chubb level players in free agency every single year. So this one was a quick and easy conversation. Let's spin the wheel again, see who else pops up. Some of these conversations will be a bit more nuanced, like this one. Right tackle Trent Brown. Okay, Trent Brown is an interesting case here because this is a player that the Texans ended up starting and relying on heavily over the course of the season. And I don't believe that any of us, from the time he was signed to even portions of training camp to the start of the season, believed that Trent Brown was going to be an integral part of the Houston Texans offense. That's what he turned into. They finally made the switch to him once he was healthy enough. They felt good enough to put him out there on the field. They made the switch to him at right tackle. They moved Titus Howard inside. Ed Ingram was at right guard. Jake Andrews and Ariante Ursu rounded out the offensive line. That's where they had the most success. Those were the five guys, the consistency that they put together. That's where they had the most success. Trent Brown did not make a lot of money last year for the Houston Texans. Trent Brown was a very small investment by the Texans, just over $2 million. I think it could have turned into $3 million. Trent Brown absolutely feels like the type of player that should be in the Price is Right category. Now, I want challengers for Trent Brown's spot. And if the Texans find a free agent that fits better than Trent Brown that can play right tackle right away, or they find a draft pick that fits the tackle spot better than Trent Brown, then move on from Trent Brown or have him be a key backup. But if Trent Brown is a right tackle backup for $2.5 million, $3 million, there's a lot worse situations that you could find yourself in. There's also the idea that maybe they just put Titus Howard at right tackle and then Trent Brown is his backup, and then your tackle situation is pretty well situated with Howard starting, Ursary starting, Brown as your key backup. So I'm putting Trent Brown in the Price is Right crew with Tommy Townsend. If the price is right, bring him back. We'll talk about what the price might be right for those guys a little bit later on. The wheel keeps on spinning. Let's see who is next in the free agent wheel of destiny. Dare Ogunbowale. Well, this one becomes a pretty quick conversation. Dare is a very nice special teams player when he is the personal protector, when he's doing some coverage stuff. He doesn't offer a lot on returns. He had the bad fumble against Jacksonville that set the Texans up for a huge deficit that they had to overcome and climb out of. And he just doesn't bring a lot to the running back room. They've got to find the next Dare Ogunbowale, preferably a young guy that they can turn into Dare Ogunbowale, but it feels to me like you can do more with the running back room. You could do more with that fourth running back spot. And if you need a special teams expert, find one at a different position that offers a little bit more at their position than what Dare Ogunbowale offers at his position. So let's get the wheel spinning and keep on going. My fear is that we'll have a bunch of just bleh free agents here at the end. But this is a bleh free agent. Harrison Bryant was brought in when the Texans had the Cade Stover injury early on in the season, had the Brevin Jordan injury early on, and Harrison Bryant was just kind of there for most of the year. Didn't bring a lot, not an excellent blocker, not an excellent pass catcher, and the tight end room needs an overhaul. We know they've got Brevin Jordan under contract. We know they've got Cade Stover under contract, and we know they have got Dalton Schultz under contract right now. You don't need Harrison Bryant. There's multiple Harrison Bryants out there, so Harrison Bryant, no thank you, does not make it into the Price is Right crew. The wheel keeps on spinning. Who is next? Now, this is a fun one. This is an interesting conversation to have, and that's safety MJ Stewart. And I was looking at MJ Stewart before this exercise and just thinking, okay, well, like how much money did he make while he was in Houston? He's made over $10 million in his 3 seasons with the Texans. And he's not an expensive football player. He had a $2.5 million salary last year, and that's a big-time key backup and special teams player that ended up being a starter and wasn't out of place as a starter. MJ Stewart was a fine fill-in for C.J. Gardner-Johnson, which Gardner-Johnson was shown the door. He was a fine stand-in before Jalen Reed got ready. And actually, I like the idea of having him back if the health checks out okay. On a small contract, he's a key backup. He's a special teams ace. And he's got more experience than, say, Jalen Reed, who they tried to start at safety, or a rookie that they might draft at safety. And just knowing where to be, knowing what to do, that's a huge element of that safety spot that he plays in DeMeco Ryans' defense. It's a big element of it. And so by virtue of that, I think MJ Stewart for me is going into the Price is Right crew. I think I'm going to add MJ Stewart to the Price is Right crew. You don't want to fall in love with too many of these guys, and we can fine-tune the Price is Right crew there at the end. But right now, I think we're going with the Price is Right crew: Tommy Townsend, Trent Brown, and MJ Stewart. Okay? I think that's a pretty good start. We got a few more free agent names to get to, and I want us to get to some of your comments, your questions, your joys, and your concerns. And I'll do all that after I tell you about my friends at Sleeper. Sleeper, the best way to play daily fantasy. The big game this Sunday. Make it even more big with some daily fantasy. More or less on some touchdown passes or receiving yards or rushing yards. There's tons of different ways to access the predictions that you'll have for Sunday. Put them all together in one entry, multiply your money 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, even more than that. There are different ways to do it on the Sleeper app, and it is fantastic. The best way to play daily fantasy, a great scores app as well. And when you sign up with my code Stoots, STOOTS, you're going to get a deposit match up to $100. STOOTS is the code when you get signed up. Terms and conditions do apply. But when you get signed up with my friends at Sleeper, use the code Stoots, STOOTS. Get some of your comments, your questions, your joys, your concerns, member chats, and super chats. Go to the front of the line like Sir Wags. Good morning, afternoon, brother. Great content as always. Townsend is an asset we should keep. I think you'll find some Townsend fans around here. Wags, appreciate you. He follows it up with a super chat. I'd keep Harris at a low-cost 1-year contract if they do re-sign Speed, and linebacker isn't a need in the draft. Brown is a 1-year rental for me. Chubb, nope. Yeah, Wags is pretty on cue. We'll get to EJ Speed. He'll show up whenever the wheel shows up. Nomad Scott's in here. John McClain's Chains is here. Chucky Dog. We need at least one free agent lineman, preferably 2, so we don't start 2 rookies. Yeah, there is an element of not starting too many young guys on offense that we have to address at some point this offseason. Jay is here. DeRhino is here. JB is here. Chewy is here. Glenn Jackson, nah, he didn't want no Tommy. MMA's eating lunch, watching a little Texans. And he's cool with 3.2 for Tommy. Chucky Dog says pass on Tommy Townsend. Cat matters. He's not consistent enough. Yeah, but what if the punting got worse? That'd be my big question about Townsend. How do you know you're upgrading? Grizzly, morning, Stoots. Going to grab some caffeine and enjoy the show so much for cutting back on the energy drinks. LOL. I just haven't had as many in the Rise Frosted Lemonade. That's good stuff. I think I'm at to about 2 or 3 a week on the energy drinks. So I'm cutting them back on this. Jay's out on Harris. Glenn's out on Chubb. JB Allen's late to the party. Glenn likes the Trent Brown prices, right? 1-year deal and leadership from Trent Brown. I think you need to pick either Brown or Ingram and keep one. We'll talk about Ed Ingram here in a minute. Mechie was traded for Bryant. Should have kept Mechie. How was Mechie going to get on the field? He's not better than any of those wide receivers they ran out there last year. Great content as always, Stoots. Appreciate you. James says mock draft time. We did a mock draft Monday. Can't go to the mock draft well too early on. Cody, you tried the new Vanilla Berry Red Bull. I'm not a huge Red Bull guy, but that sounds interesting. I'll search it out, see if I can find it. Paul says, like and subscribe, people. Let's all help Cody get more fans. I appreciate you, Paul. Thank you. Thank you for checking in at the checking in from across the pond as well. Okay, so the Price is Right free agent crew right now: Tommy Townsend, Trent Brown, MJ Stewart. I reserve the right to kick some of these guys off the list there at the end, but that's what we've gotten to. Now let's let the wheel decide who is next on the Price is Right potential additions. Yeah, Miles Bryant, to me, this one's a pretty quick and easy conversation. This is a player that is a nice 90-man roster player, maybe on the practice squad in a pinch when you need a little bit here, a little bit there. But Miles Bryant is not a guy that you can regularly put on the field. It's a guy they tried to hide when he was the starting safety a couple of times this past year. You could go younger. You could go with a different level of experience combined with a different size of the player. Miles Bryant feels to me like a pretty easy move on from. So we will keep the wheel spinning to see what comes up next. Linebacker E.J. Speed. Now, Speed was an intriguing addition to this team in free agency. Colts fans were kind of happy to see him go. But Speed was going to be a player where he was going to be a clear backup and going to be a clear depth guy and then help you out a little bit on special teams. And the Texans paid a pretty decent amount for it, a little over $3.5 million, I think, when it was all said and done, or $3.5 million when it was all said and done. And for a backup linebacker, that's nice. I do wonder if Speed feels like, hey, there's other opportunities for me to start. He's a clear backup behind Henry To'oTo'o and Azeez Al-Shire in Houston. So maybe Speed would want something else. And for the Texans, you could take that $3.5 million. You could find something different. You could find the next EJ Speed. You don't have to fall in love with it. Though, if they felt like he was a player that clicked really well with their defense, and he was a player that also played really well on their special teams, I could see them bringing him back. It would be a no for me, but EJ Speed coming back to the Texans would not surprise me. So the wheel keeps spinning. Who is next in our conversation? This one's going to be a quick one. Basically a healthy scratch all year long and got his job taken by Jalen Noel in the preseason. So it's pretty easy to see where Braxton Berrios can just go somewhere else and find. I don't know how he made it the entire season on the roster. They didn't need him to help at wide receiver. They didn't need him to help in the return game. Feels like the roster spot could have been utilized a different way, but Braxton Berrios, that one's pretty easy. That one's a move on from me. Let's see what the wheel spin brings us now. Damone Clark added in the middle part of the year, a special teams guy, and when he did play a little bit at linebacker, it was the Cardinals, I think, that got him on the goal line. But yeah, Damone Clark, you can find the next Damone Clark or another Damone Clark, and he was an addition in the middle of the year, so he didn't even have like the built-in, like watched him in training camp, got to know him. Like he just kind of, special teams mercenary here in the middle of the year. So that one's pretty easy. Let's see what the wheel has for us. All right, so we stick on Sheldon Rankins. Now, this one is probably the most interesting one that was left on the board and is the one that's going to require the longest conversation. So Sheldon Rankins as a potential free agent. I like the idea of bringing Rankins back. And he was a starter for the entirety of the year for the Texans. He played pretty well throughout the course of the year. I didn't feel like there was ever a moment where I was saying to myself, man, Sheldon Rankins really isn't having a good game. That just didn't happen. Will Anderson clearly values his leadership and how much he brings to the locker room. And I felt like there was enough from Sheldon Rankins that if the price doesn't get too expensive, then he's a pretty easy bring back. Now, when the Texans signed him in 2023, he made just under $10 million. When the Texans signed him here in 2025, he made just over $5 million. There's got to be some sort of in-between there because he did play well enough to get a little bit of a raise, but you also have so many other things that you want to take care of, and you don't want to be too reliant on what occurred last year. Rankins is getting up there in age. He'll be 32 in April. So that is something to consider. So he very much falls in the Price is Right category because if he's in for $6 million, like you can do a whole lot worse with $6 million than just signing Sheldon Rankins and plopping him right in the middle of the defensive line and hoping that you get the same production out of him and Tommy Togiai and then put some more bodies behind them as interesting players. But Rankins, for me, absolutely in the Price is Right crew that we've started to put together here with these guys. Tommy Townsend, Trent Brown, MJ Stewart, Sheldon Rankins. You don't want to be too committed to bringing back all these guys, but I think that there's a worthwhile conversation to be had with all of these guys. So the Price is Right crew continues to grow. Our crew can grow if you visit us at Spanky's. On February 20th, we're going to be having a blowout, getting you ready for the NFL Scouting Combine and free agency that will follow shortly after that. Landry and I will be in Indianapolis all week long at the end of February at the Combine, getting the latest rumors, conversations about the Houston Texans, talking to the people from the Texans that are there at the Scouting Combine. It's going to be a fantastic week, and we're going to get you ready for it with a Friday, February 20th broadcast from our friends at Spanky's. A live broadcast, arrive at 3, live at 4, hanging out with you at Spanky's. Come out. We'll have some giveaway stuff to get to. We'll have some conversations about the draft party and what we're hoping for and thinking for about that when that gets here on the Saturday of the NFL draft. And, of course, we'll get you ready for the draft and free agency, which will be right on the horizon when the 20th rolls around. So don't miss it out there at Spanky's. And, of course, go visit Spanky's ahead of time. Fantastic daily specials on Monday and Wednesday. You get the one large topping pizza for less than $12. You get the $6.50 Tuesday pasta special, happy hour each and every weekday at Spanky's, and just fantastic food as well. There's already great value with our friends at Spanky's. The wheel continues to spin. Only a handful of names here left. Who is next? Derek Barnett. Now, this to me feels like a short but also a long conversation. If you want to go ahead and just lock up Derek Barnett as one of your depth pieces on the defensive line for basically what he played for last year, which is $4 million, go ahead and do it. I'm totally in favor of that. I would totally understand him making about the same that he made last year. He was fine. He had a couple of nice moments. He's a guy that knows the system. He plays it the way that they want him to play it, and they trust him out there, and they put him out there on the field quite often, and they believe in him as well. So I think by that virtue, Derek Barnett for a nice bit of, $4 million, certainly. But I don't have to have Derek Barnett back. He plays a decent amount, but doesn't play a lot. He is an older player. And I say older, his age is only going to be 30 in the upcoming year, but he's played a lot of football. So the wear and tear, do you get the return on the investment, even though the investment's a smaller investment? 6 sacks for $4 million. I mean, that's not the worst investment ever. There have been better investments, but it's not the worst investment ever. I think Barnett's a worthwhile consideration to come back. I'm not going to quite put him in the Price is Right crew, but I would think about bringing back Derek Barnett. Let's see what the wheel spin has. Handful of names left. Tim Settle, defensive tackle. I got a hunch Tim Settle wants to play a little bit more than he did for the Texans. He initially was a rotational player for the Texans in 2024. Then he found himself starting a little bit over the course of 2025. And I thought the results were mixed. I think there were some times where he was pretty darn good. I think there were some times where he just wasn't very good. He made $3 million each of the 2 years, average annual value, $6 million total contract. But he made a little over $3 million each year. For the same dollar amount, you'd think about bringing him back and just having familiarity. You trusted him. But DeMeco Ryans did talk a lot about his consistency and how maybe inconsistent he was. So maybe just trying something different, a new Tim Settle, a different Tim Settle, a different version of the type of player that Tim Settle is probably the way to go. And maybe saving a few bucks on the margins here as well. Or, you got, in theory, you got Sheldon Rankins and Tommy Togiai. Keontae Hamilton's a rookie from last year. Junior Tafuna's in the building as an undrafted free agent from last year. You have the start of something there. If you kept Mario Edwards, there's another defensive tackle option. Let's say you drafted 2 more bodies and then signed another veteran that wasn't Tim Settle. You could certainly put together a decent defensive tackle room. The wheel keeps spinning. This one's easy. They shouldn't have signed him back last offseason. It was a total they threw money away on Foley Fatukasi. $3 million. He was never healthy. He wasn't healthy 2 years ago. He wasn't healthy this past year. They gave his number away before the season was over. See you later, Foley Fatukasi. Just 4 names remain. Naquan Jones. Now, Naquan Jones was a waiver claim in the middle of the year for the Houston Texans, and Jones, I thought, finished the season pretty solid. He had some really nice moments down the stretch as a backup defensive tackle. If he was interested in like a $1.5–2 million partially guaranteed contract, I'm in on Naquan Jones coming back and competing for an interior defensive line spot. He seemed to fit in well with the Texans. And if he can come in and compete and win a spot, so be it. And if not, you only lose like $500,000 if he doesn't make the team, go for it. I think that's a pretty easy conversation. If Naquan wants to come back, and if the Texans want to have him back, and it's less than $2 million and certainly less than that guaranteed, pretty easy for me to see Naquan Jones making his way back and competing for a defensive tackle spot. I'm in on Naquan Jones coming back. Bigger body too. Bigger body. I just don't see how this would work out. I don't see what you would want to do with Christian Kirk. He had one good game for the Houston Texans when it mattered, and that was the Pittsburgh Steelers playoff game. Now, that's a great performance, but you can't have basically your season output in one playoff game and be a guy you consider bringing back. He's standing in the way of progress. Of Jalen Noel. Didn't look particularly good. He looked good early on. The injuries caught up with him a couple different times. This one's a pretty easy one. This was always going to be a one-year experiment here with Christian Kirk. And so Christian Kirk, see you later. And just 2 names remain. Is the Wheel of Destiny going to bless me with the most complicated conversation last and Ed Ingram? Or are they going to make me talk about Ed Ingram right now? No, the Wheel of Destiny blesses me with the complicated Ed Ingram conversation at the end. Danico Autry, you've heard this phrase before. Go find the next Danico Autry. It's pretty simple. Go find the next Danico Autry. This was not the investment return that they expected from Danico Autry. He was barely practicing. He barely played in 2024 because of an injury and a suspension. And they renegotiated his deal a little bit, changed some things around it. They spent $10 million on the guy, and he did not bring it. Okay, he did not bring it. He did not play a lot of snaps for you. He did not get home as often as you expected him to. He had 11.5 sacks in 2023 for the Tennessee Titans. And I understand that was a full-time player, basically. But as a part-time player, to only get 6.5 sacks over the next 2 seasons and barely play, that just, to me, you can use the money better. So Danico Autry, see you later, out of here. And we will talk about Ed Ingram as the wheel has left just Ed Ingram here in a moment. But I want to get to some of your comments, your questions, your joys, your concerns, as well. And, of course, Super Chats jump to the front of the line. Do the Texans play more 2 linebacker or 3 linebacker sets? They play 2 linebacker. Their base defense is essentially nickel with Jalen Petrie on the field. Pseudo linebacker, pseudo safety, pseudo DB, pseudo nickelback, whatever. But that's essentially what they do is play nickel as their base defense. So they play 2 linebackers a lot of times. So it does lessen your need for on-field linebacker, but it does make it an even more important element of that backup player because you only play 2. You have a lot of faith in them. You have a lot of trust in them. When you do have to put that guy on the field, you have to feel good about putting that guy out there on defense. Easier to play special teams than it is to play defense. A couple of your comments, your questions. JB Allen, the Annihilator. We need a Super Bowl Tarot sports card unpacking. If any Pats players are unpacked, that means they'll have a horrible game. JB, ask and ye shall receive. Friday morning, tomorrow morning, we will do that. Paul Young. No, don't let Cody do another mock draft. My blood pressure can't take another tight end being drafted. Paul, what do you want to do at tight end? Barrios is a hell nah. Yeah. My theory for Braxton Barrios, they want to cut him after he got dumped. Who knows what that does to your psyche? They were worried about the between the ears of Braxton Berrios. I can certainly understand that, but he brought nothing to the football field. And yeah, I guess they didn't want to pile on with the, the rough off the field stuff. Glenn wants Rankins $5 million a year. We have 3 of the 4 starting defensive line spots locked up. Well, if you start Tommy Togiai, you got all 4 starting spots locked up. I would feel like you'd start Tommy Togiai after the season he had, and then just have some key backups ready to go. But yeah, Rankins for me, absolutely coming back in the Price is Right crew. JB, Rankins is a yes because Willie Anderson loves him, but he shouldn't start on this team. Well, I'm not bringing him back and paying him $5 million to be a rotational player. In on Rankins for the 1-year deal. Patrick Slate blaming the YouTube overlords. Grizzly, in on Rankins. Think he'd have even a better year than this year. Reminder, he didn't get a full offseason like he wanted because of the condition he was having. Yeah, that is another element too. And a little bit of an older player, so you kind of tamper down your expectations that he could improve year to year. But Rankins is a player that I'm intrigued in having back. Again, if the price is right. Let's see. Ephraim Grays, good morning. Cody, did you see CJ's new haircut? Do you believe he created a new look to take attention off his bad season? I don't know that it's ever crossed his mind like that. Like, I've never had a bad, stretch of shows and be like, I need to cut my hair and get a new vibe going. Like, I've never thought that way about it. So I can't speak to if he feels that way about it. But if he makes a big change like that, like that's a big change in his life when you factor in how long it's taken to put the hair in the position that it was in. It's cool. I'm sure it feels different. And everybody, when they have a huge haircut like that, there's always a moment of regret. I'm sure he had one of those, but I don't think it's like, oh, let's cut my hair to get rid of the bad mojo from the season. There's a lot wrong with you if that's the way you kind of operate in the offseason. JB wants Derek Barnett re-signed as a backup. He's a sure thing on the second string. Boy, I've been the second string plenty of times. Nobody's ever called me a sure thing. I like that saying. Sure thing is a second string. What's the cap space at, by the way? I haven't seen too many talk about that. Well, Texans cap is my resource for that, is my buddy Troy, who does a tremendous job keeping up with the ins and outs and the intricacies of the salary cap. And as he would note to you a couple of different times, right now, the salary cap number, for the Houston Texans does not look good, but there are very easy ways to go out there and find ways to add things to the salary cap. So, for instance, you could restructure various contracts. You could, and I'll bring it up here because Texans cap does a great job of this. January 30th, so about a week ago, the 2026 cap projection. So not good. Okay. Not much money. I mean, that might be negative money if I'm looking at it right. Yeah. Yeah. So not a lot of cap space, but you can create a lot of cap space. I think is the big thing that you hear from Texans cap a lot. And if you have cap questions, go tweet him at Texans cap. And he's here on YouTube, get in the comment section of his YouTube. And then he's on Substack as well. So at Cap and Trade. So he can answer a lot of your questions about that. I'm not worried about cap space because he's not worried about cap space, and he's sort of my barometer. Damn it, I liked Foley. He's a legit big DT. Yeah, but he can't stay on the field. Captain Kirk has left the building. Yeah. Hey, you and me both. No, thank you. By Autry. 2 D Barnetts for 1 Autry is a steal. Yeah, that'd be great. If you go, you get Derek Barnett, you get another Derek Barnett-esque player as a depth player, and you could repurpose Autry's money into maybe an offensive lineman. Yeah. How do you like Monroe, Freeling, and Blake Miller? That's the Georgia and Clemson tackles. They seem to be late first-round guys. I'm not in love with either of those guys. It feels like they are only first-rounders because they play tackle, not because they're first-round tackles. But I got to do a lot more digging and learning about those two fellas. Didn't watch a lot of Clemson this year. Cody, can we get a free agent wheel too? Wags, you're reading my mind here. Get out of here. It's a scary place. It's a scary place. Got to knock this draft out of the park, keep the CJ defense window open. Got to have a good free agency run too. You can't get locked into a bad contract here or there either that keeps you from doing stuff in the future. The cap is only fake if the GM is good. I don't think Casario's done a bad job at managing money. I mean, I think they've wasted some money and they've leaked value a couple of different times, but I don't think he's done a bad job. Let's talk about Ed Ingram. He's the last player on the wheel. So, just so nobody can say we didn't do it. Ed Ingram is your final conversation here in the Texans free agency. No more free agents remain on the wheel. Ed Ingram, let's talk about it. Ed Ingram had a really solid season. To say that Ed Ingram was good, I think would indicate that perhaps he was consistently good. And I don't believe that to be the case. But Ed Ingram had some really nice stretches and some really nice moments for this team. And depending on where you look from an advanced stats and from a Pro Football Focus and this and that, Ed Ingram played a lot of football, which is number one, super important if you're going to invest in a guy. And Ed Ingram played a lot of good football with some excellent football and some bad football mixed in there, which I think is a really important element of the conversation. Because if that's the guy you're signing, you're probably going to overpay. A guy that's pretty good, has a couple of really nice games, and has a couple of really bad games, that's probably an overpay. Okay? It's probably an overpay if you're going to sign that type of guy. But he ended up as a pretty decent graded out blocker. He played over 1,000 snaps. He got charged with 5 sacks. But you look at the guard position and you look at those guards that hit free agency and they just get all sorts of crazy money. They just get all sorts of crazy money. When you look back at 2025 and the free agents that changed teams in 2025, they got huge deals. Aaron Banks, who was not a good football player, okay, left the San Francisco 49ers, went to the Packers, $77 million contract, 4 years. Will Fries, who'd played a season and a half, not even, of good football, 5 years, $87 million. Patrick McCarry, who'd barely been in the Ravens rotation, he got $12.5 million to leave the Ravens and go to the Jaguars. Mekhi Becton, $10 million when he was okay for a season with the Philadelphia Eagles. The guards hitting free agency get huge, huge deals. 2 years ago, $20 million a year for Robert Hunt, $19 million a year for Onwenu for the Patriots. Jonah Jackson got $17 million a year. Damian Lewis, $13.25. Like John Runyon, who wasn't very good, $10 million a year. Guys, when they change teams at guard over the past couple of off seasons, have gotten huge dollar amounts. And Ed Ingram, if you look at some of the projections and think about, hey, where he could go and what he could make, you're looking at a guy that is market value projected to make at least $10 million a year, probably more. And you got to be thinking 16, 17 million is a potential jump in area for Ed Ingram because that's what guys get on the open market. And Aaron Banks didn't have good football under his belt in the year coming out of his final year of his contract, headed to free agency. He got $77 million. Will Fries had a slightly larger body of work that was better than Ed Ingram's, and it wasn't much better, and he got $87 million over 5 years. This is a guy that should hit free agency, should test the waters, find out if teams are interested in giving him that big money, and go take the big money. The Texans should not pay this guy big money. The Texans should not pay this guy to lock him in on the offensive line big money. Now, if Ed Ingram says, I like it here, I just want to make a little bit more money than I have made, it's worth noting Ed Ingram in his career's made about $8 million. So if he's making $8 million a year for the next 3 years, That'd be a huge change in his lifestyle, change in what he brings to the table. And certainly you would think Cole Popovich gets his hands on him, can mold him, adjust him, gets a little bit deeper into the system. That would look good for Ed Ingram. I just can't justify spending a whole bunch of money on this guy. And certainly if he hits free agency, which he should, and if he doesn't hit free agency, his agent should be fired. But if Ed Ingram hits free agency, he's going to be too expensive. I'd move on from him. I wouldn't pay him. And that's where I am on Ed Ingram. And I don't feel like the Texans are going to bring him back. And like I've said with various other players, go find the next Ed Ingram. Go find the next Ed Ingram. Go find the next guy that can go out there and give you what he gave you. Or go find a rookie who's a long-term solution to that guard spot and not a couple of years like Ed Ingram would be. Because if you sign a 3-year deal with a free agent or a guy that you're extending, a lot of times after 2, you're ready to move on or they're ready to move on. So I thought that Ed Ingram was a nice trade addition. He ended up being a solid player for the Texans, but paying him feels like that would be a mistake. Feels like that would be a mistake. Bubba Homeschool. With a decent interior O-line, CJ will feel comfortable stepping into the pocket like he did his rookie year. Less early bailouts. Yeah, they've built some monsters in there. Andrews has to get better, get some 2 guards that can maul people, and let's go to work. Wags. Ingram. 1-2 year depth or potential starter, make him earn his spot. Yeah, see, that's the thing. He can go walk into a $10 million, $20 million, $10 million, $12 million, $16 million a year deal. Go walk into that deal. Yeah, you'd love to have him back, but at what cost? $6 million a year? Sure. I'd pay Ed Ingram $6 million a year for the next 3. Less than $20 million for a starting guard? Sure. Honestly, Cody, this is your worst take. How the hell are we supposed to have a good O-line with no good players? Well, I didn't say don't start a good player at the offensive line. I just said don't pay Ed Ingram $16 million. There's other free agents. Like, just because I wouldn't pay Ed Ingram 16 doesn't mean I wouldn't go and pay somebody else to go be the starting guard. Like, would I pay Ed Ingram $16 million, or would I pay, I don't know, Kevin Zeitler $10 million? Or would I pay Wyatt Teller from the Browns? Would I pay him $10 million or $12 million or $13 million because he got a longer body of work? Just because I don't want Ed Ingram doesn't mean that I don't think they should invest in the offensive line. They absolutely should. But you have to think about this. You probably only have one addition coming to the offensive line once you figure out where Titus is playing, and you probably only have one either guy coming back to play like Ed Ingram or adding in free agency. Because I don't think you want to go with 2 rookies on this offensive line. As much as I know a lot of us want multiple offensive linemen in the draft, I don't feel like you want 2 rookies out there on the O-line. So Andrews, though, I would try to replace him. Ursery, Howard, there's your 3. I'd spend big on a guard because I feel like there's better guard options than tackle options in free agency. I'd spend big on a guard, and I'd draft a tackle. Or I'd play Trent Brown and draft a developmental tackle that maybe can start if Brown doesn't finish the year. They still can create a good offensive line. Absolutely, they can put together a good offensive line without paying Ed Ingram. Go find the next Ed Ingram is the easiest thing to say and hardest thing to do. Sure, go find the next Ed Ingram and have that guy be behind a veteran guard that you pay. I don't want the plan A to be the next Ed Ingram. But if you pay a right tackle or you draft a right tackle and Titus is your left guard, it's not the worst thing in the world if the next Ed Ingram is your right guard with some options. Cleveland losing both their guards probably pay for a guard like Ingram. They might. I don't know if Andrew Berry's magical, mystical, advanced super numbers would tell him to get at Ingram, but they might. Monken could probably use a guy like Ingram to help the run game. That's the thing, too, is I thought Ingram had some nice moments in the run game. And the pass blocking was fine. Yeah, Ursery's the starting left tackle for the next few years until he proves he's not. So that's locked in. That's the left tackle. Arion Tereshree's your left tackle. That's it. We're not having any other conversations about that. What's the Magic 8-Ball say about Fisher and Scruggs? Outlook not so good. I would think they both come to camp, and I would think they're both fighting tooth and nail to stick around for this team. They've got to show something. They got to show something. I think they're fighting tooth and nail to make the team if they make it to camp. Touch of Trent. Give me former Browns offensive guard Joel Bitonio on a 1-year deal and draft a developmental guard. Here's my problem with Bitonio. He didn't really want to get traded last year. He's very old from a guard standpoint. I say old in years. He'll be 35 this upcoming season, and he's played a tremendous amount of football. So he's very old. I don't believe he wants to leave Cleveland. I think he signs a 1-year deal with Cleveland if they want him back. And if they don't want him back, I think Bitonio is going to retire. So I don't believe he's going to be an option in free agency. Glenn Jack. Fisher doesn't make the team, is what I'm gathering here. Seems like Juice is on the outs too. Should not be guaranteed either of those guys. Should not be guaranteed either of those. Everybody outside of a draft pick in the first 2 rounds, Titus, Ursary, and a big investment in free agency, every one of those guys should be fighting tooth and nail to make the roster on the offensive line. Nomad Scott, he's doing what I love. Nomad Scott shopping at the top, baby. Shop at the top when it comes to free agents. And he's shopping expensive. Okay. Elijah Vera Tucker, the former Jets offensive lineman, and David Edwards, the former Buffalo Bills offensive lineman. Edwards is going to be a very expensive, if you believe the prognosticators, probably the top guard or one of the top guards this offseason. I probably would not make that investment if I was the Houston Texans. Elijah Vera Tucker is a fascinating case study because he has been hurt a ton in his career. He's had basically 2 season-ending injuries in back-to-back seasons. Like, he didn't play in 2024. He got hurt in 2025. Like, there's a bet on Elijah Vera Tucker. Let's see if I get he didn't get injured in 2024, but he only played 5 games in 2023, played 15 in 2024, didn't play in 2025. And he's played all over the place. Guard, tackle, right guard. So he's kind of like a Titus Howard-esque player. He plays a little tackle, plays a little guard, does okay at most of it. I'd be interested. It's tough to bet on that guy because of the injuries. And I can't be, hey, go get this guy and also kind of be in, hey, don't invest in guys with injuries. So AVT is interesting. Edwards is too expensive for me. Who's going to be reporting as eligible this upcoming season? Well, hopefully they block better and they don't need that. This made me laugh. Joel Bitonio wants to be a Brown, which makes him a moron, and we don't need morons on the offensive line. PTSD, post-traumatic Shaq disorder, old guards scare me. Yeah, Shaq Mason's failures will do that to you. Patrick says keep Ed for the right money. But what's the right money? Is the right money for Ed Ingram and the right money for the Texans are probably 2 very different things. 2 very different things. Breece Hall to save all butts. Don't threaten me with a good time. I certainly would enjoy a investment in a running back. I understand that it will be expensive and you overpay for running backs, but sometimes nice things cost good money. Is Eli Cox still on the roster? I believe he did get a future reserve deal. Chunky Dog calling his shot. Arion Tereshreet left tackle. drafting Oregon guard Emmanuel Pregnon, adding a free agent center, Ed Ingram at right guard, Titus Howard at right tackle is his ideal line for 2026, plus pick up a swing tackle in the mid-rounds. It's not bad. It's not bad. Free agent center could be a little pricey, but it's not bad. I, of course, want Tyler Linderbaum. I don't know the Texans are going to be interested in that. Linderbaum could be the quarterback of interior O-linemen, which could make it more palatable to have rookies starting in both guard spots. Those guards would also have veterans next to them at tackle. Yeah, I'm not super in on Linderbaum, rookie, Ursary Howard. I'm not super in on that, but it's not the worst idea. It's not the worst idea. I think I'm much closer to Ursary at left tackle, rookie at left guard, Linderbaum at center, Howard at right guard, and maybe free agent or rookie, and I know I don't want to start two rookies, or Trent Brown at right tackle, like Trent Brown with like a young guy behind him in case Trent Brown can't figure it out. Like, I don't know, it's tough. It's tough for me to build an offensive line that's centered around Trent Brown when Trent Brown, I can't guarantee he's going to play for an entire season. So, I don't know. That's tough. We can't find good linemen. Mitchell Ursary is pretty good. Trent Brown ended up being okay. Ed Ingram ended up being okay. Tyus played okay this year. Andrews is fine. Could probably upgrade there. Cody, off topic. I was playing Madden the other day. I saw Fisher go out for a pass. I about died. I didn't know that you could. I didn't even know you could put Fisher out there to go out there and run for a pass. Jerome kicks. That's the problem with the organization. We think offensive linemen too expensive. Then we shop at the bottom and expect to play at the top from them bottom feeders. Spend some money to protect. Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me about spending money is when you spend on a guy, it's also a long-term solution. When you make that investment, like Ursary's a long-term solution now at left tackle. Like Ed Ingram was in the final year of his deal when they got him. They knew they're going to have to do something if it worked out with him. Trent Brown was a one-year deal. They knew they're going to have to do something if it worked out with him. Not only is a financial investment like a hope because you hope a player can play to the level of money that you spent on him, it's also a long-term solution when you spend money. Most guards aren't one-year situations, or most tackles aren't one-year situations on the offensive line in free agency. You spend big money, usually it's 3, 4, 5 years, and you know those guys are going to be there for the next few seasons. And that's another element I'd like to have locked in if I was the Texans, of let's have 4 of our 5 spots figured out for at least the next 3 seasons. You know, Ursary's under contract for the next 3 years before he gets expensive if he's good or you have to move on. Andrews will never be expensive if you have him in there. Howard's a little pricey, but if you knew it was going to be Ursary and Howard, a rookie, a vet, and you just had an open spot every year that you were kind of adjusting and changing, you could build the offensive line that way. Cody, you know what we need on this O-line? Some big nasties. Could Eli Cox be our Tom Nalen or Chris Myers? I don't think so. I don't think there's much there with Eli Cox. Remember the good old days when we had Dwayne Brown and Eric Winston? Man, those were the good old days. You remember the real good old days? You got Charles Spencer and Eric Winston back in the day, and Spencer got run up on by Ron Dane, got hurt, ended up with Dwayne Brown. Then there was the real good old days when it was Dwayne Brown, Wade Smith, and Chris Myers, and they all went to the Pro Bowl. That was good. Been a while, but that was good. James says, Cody, I know I didn't like the running backs of this draft, and largely I don't. However, I've changed my mind about Jadarian Price. Brings an explosive aspect. Him plus Marks is fire plus kick returns. Jadarian Price was the backup running back to Jeremiah Love this year for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And Price still had a really solid season in his own right. 6 yards per carry, 674 total rushing yards, and 11 rushing touchdowns. 2 rushing touchdowns against Texas A&M early in the year when the Texans, or in the Fighting Irish, lost to the Texas A&M Fighting Texas Aggies. So Price is a nice player. He's going to be a guy that's going to fly up draft boards, and they're going to look at the fact that he doesn't have a lot of wear and tear on him, and that's going to be a big positive. And he's going to be an intriguing player. Why does Caserio throw out so many one-year deals? Is not committed. I just don't know if you felt strongly enough about those players that you needed to make them multi-year investments. Hey, Cody, where's the link to the merch page? My buddy wants a hat. Bubba, send me an email. I will figure that out for you. Send me an email. I do not have the Houston football shop up right now, but send me an email, Bubba, and I'll get your buddy a hat. Chucky Dog, I'm in favor of overpaying for an O-lineman, even if it costs us defensive free agent in the future. Not only is it just good football to have a good O-lineman, we need no CJ excuses. Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. All right, so we finished up with let's finish up with the Price is Right crew. Tommy Townsend, the Price is Right. Just go ahead and bring it back. Don't spend a whole bunch of money on punter, but don't neglect it because they might have to punt a lot. So Tommy Townsend. Trent Brown for about what he made, maybe a slight increase in the potential money if he plays all season long. MJ Stewart as a solid backup starter if you have to start him, special teams player, and then Sheldon Rankins as a starter on the defensive line for the Texans, and you maybe have all your defensive line starters back from the end of last year. If you brought Sheldon Rankins back, you'd have Togiai if they start him, then of course Daniil and Will Anderson. So the Price is Right crew, 19 free agents, just 4 falling in the Price is Right crew, and I would say none of them falling in the have to have this guy back category. None of these players fall into the have to have him back category from free agents. So nice fun exercise on a off-season Thursday. And we'll finish up with some comments. I want Jake Andrews gone. Okay, I did not know JB felt so strongly about him. James, Jake Andrews is dead to me. That's mean. Drafted Georgia punter, Brett Thorson. He's a nice punter, man. He was him and Nick Caserio and Frank Ross paying a lot of attention to him at the Senior Bowl. The Jadarian Price is right. DeRhino, that's good. I like that. Texans over the cap by a few $1 million. Do you expect any surprise cuts to save money, or is that just going to be contract restructures, potential extensions for a couple players? It'd be the restructures and the extensions. I don't really see a lot of cuttable players on the Texans. Like if you were going through the roster, nobody really makes huge money that you'd be like, yeah, let's go ahead and just get rid of this guy. Your big cap hits are all guys that are going to be on the team. Okay, cut Dalton Schultz. You save $4 million, and now you need a new starting tight end. I mean, Mixon saves you a few $1 million. There's $6 million, $7 million, whatever it is. So there's that. You could save a little bit with Mario Edwards, but there's really not a lot of cuts to be made on this team. Is the fullback experiment over? I think that's TBD. All right, that'll do it for the show today. Did a little free agency look through. We'll have some more stuff for you tomorrow on the show. We'll do trading cards as tarot cards for the Super Bowl and some other fun stuff on the program tomorrow. We end the live streams the same way each and every time. It's my hope for you. It's my charge for you as well. I want you to eat good. I want you to sleep good. I want you to be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hip-hoppity, dip-doppity-doo.